I'm very happy to talk here with Alojzije Jankovic, the commentator at the Prague Chess Festival. And I'm very happy to talk chess with you because you are a chess enthusiast and I think you are a commentator. You are a strong grandmaster. You are a writer, theoretician, editor, trainer. You were once champion of Croatia or twice? Once?
Shared first, second time.
You also have a master in economics.
Yep.
And you're currently vice president of the European Chess Union. So all this indicates a strong passion for chess. And I was wondering, how did this passion ignite? How did you come to play chess?
Oh, good question. Thanks for that. Chess is my life. I learned it being 4 years old. I have an older brother, 2.5 years older than me. He has PhD in history, and he's a professor at the college in Zagreb. And you know how it goes. You know, younger brother always wants to catch older brother. So I was trying hard to get closer to him. My father has a strong passion for chess as well. He's total amateur. And
so it's chess family.
Yeah, so it's a chess family, but I would say never we were part of some competition circle. So in that sense, heritage is not connected with competitive chess. But as I said, it was common that my grandpa, my father's father-in-law, and him would play chess, and then we were always like watching. And this is how it has started. And then there was a crucial thing. So I was playing, you know, in youth age, you have like in World Junior Chess Championships, for example. First, it was under 25. Then it was under 23. Then it was under 20. You didn't have, and one group only. So you didn't have separate groups. And same was in Croatian Championship. So groups were bigger. So it was under 11. You could play with 8 years old. Being 8 years old, you need to play under 11, and they were making separate final standings. And second
but
group
it was a huge tournament.
Yeah, it was a huge
tournament. So it was not like the under-8s are playing one tournament. It was just a huge tournament.
So it was a huge tournament. So it was not easy to make a breakthrough, but I did, and I became a Croatian champion. And at that time, that means that you qualify for the European and World Championship. And I was lucky that European Rapid Championship took place in Paris. In Euro Disneyland.
Oh, how nice.
For the first time traveling by plane, I was going there. There was a match between Bacro, who was already, he's my age. 83 is one of the best generation in chess, by the way. 90 is the best with Magnus, Nepo, and others. But 83, my generation is very strong with Grishchuk, Elyanov, Yakovenko, Bacro, Dominguez, and so on. So I went to this championship. Can you imagine a kid? Being 10 years old around Euro Disneyland with all those stuff.
I know these feelings. I know this. It's one of the good things of chess that as a kid you got to know. You know, you have this experience. You're in the company of adults who accept you because you play chess, and you also see the world, so to speak. You know, or you travel and you see things. Yeah.
It was a huge thing, especially if you take into consideration that Croatia at that time was a war country. So we were having a war in 1995, 1997. So it was a tough period for some kid, and it was a light in the tunnel, and I got very inspired. And this is how I actually started to work more on chess.
Oh, you actually had a conscious, you were conscious about the war. Even as a young kid, and what it did to you, and you took chess as a stabilizer.
I would say, I'm not speaking about this very often. Maybe it was not even mentioned anywhere in media. So I was born in '83. The war had started. 91, 90 was already tension. We was living next to Serbian border, so we needed to move.
To flee?
Yeah, we needed to move to Zagreb. I changed 6 primary schools. So it was a tough period for me, but chess was always something which was like a safe haven.
Yeah.
And it was also important when you start. I was playing European Championship, so I was meeting kids from Serbia, and then you started also to get along. So you got like above that So that was also very important, that you realize that it's not about all the people. So this, I have many friends these days in Serbia, so it's not something which actually affected me a lot.
Oh, okay. So chess then
Help
really unites.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. But then, how did you make the transition from being interested in chess and successful as a junior to a chess career?
Yeah, I was actually lucky that I was a latecomer.
Oh.
So I had a period till like being 10, 11 years old when I really performed very well on Croatian standards. But then I was sort of, I was attending some group lessons which probably were not ideal, with one international masters. And I had this period of stagnation of maybe 3-4 years. And then being 15, 16 years old, I started to work with Grandmaster Hulak.
Krunoslav
Hulak. He was born in 51, same generation, Karpov, Ribli, Timian, Jula Sachs, and others. And he passed away in 2015, which is, again, we have the same, like Bobby Fischer, 64 years.
Yeah,
He was very passionate about chess. So I worked hard with him. Mm-hmm. But you have problems sometimes in chess when you work hard. You are really under influence of a lot of information. It's not easy to grasp this at the right moment. So I was working hard, but results were not coming.
You were stagnating.
I was stagnating. And
the famous plateau.
Yeah, and the thing is, I was expecting that due to my huge effort, huge work on chess, that I would need to have a right to claim the results, while others were not working hard. But in chess, it doesn't go that way. But you know what happens? When you're working a lot on chess, usually it pays off at some point. And if you're patient enough, you will get this payoff and time, and it happened later. By the way, I got my first laptop being 20 years old.
Yeah.
In my time, it was like normal to put an emphasis on books, on I don't know, some classics. But when I got a first laptop, suddenly I was under influence of a lot of information, a lot of possibilities, and I also improved very quickly. Oh, okay. But as being newcomer, going back to your question, I had I would say a chance to start studying, which actually helped me. I was doing socialization, I was meeting a lot of people, and actually this
studying
opened.
At university.
Yes, exactly. In Zagreb, it was economical faculty of economics, regular one, without any special treatment. And it took more time than usual. I was studying maybe for 6 years, but I never failed an exam. But the problem is when summer comes, I go to play tournaments. And usually exam periods are summer or something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So that was actually the issue. And then later I also, when I started to work in federation, I considered this as some like sports manager position. So I also finished master of sports management, which I think opened also a little bit more.
So you had 3 careers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But sometimes it's not so simple because you're not sure where to put the focus.
Yeah, it's just by hindsight that life makes sense, and you see some direct connection from the things you do to the things you came later. But when talking to you before this interview, I was struck. I was so impressed by your general knowledge about chess. You know, you seem to know a lot about chess books, a lot about chess films, a lot about chess culture. You know tournaments. You know the results of tournaments. So I was wondering, do you have a favorite player of all the players in the history of chess?
Okay, I'm a big fan of Bobby Fischer. I read a book called Russian versus Fischer. Because
the gray one.
It was a red one, but then it was added with some KGB files later.
Oh, I have the English version.
So it was for that time so interesting to me because there were a lot of books, and you know, Fischer's spirit was always around former Yugoslavia. In 1970, he played this Soviet Union versus rest of the world. Then also he was playing this 58 interzonal in Portorož. Then bled Zagreb, Belgrade, 59 candidates, even some chess pieces at that time were brought for this tournament, and now that this design still stays. Dubrovnik Olympiad in 1950, Fischer was not at that time, but people who would later be on very good terms with him, like Gligoric, would share their also some thoughts. So let's say that this topic was always around, this Bobby Fischer spirit, also living in Budapest later. Budapest is quite close to Zagreb. So I learned a lot about him. But after that book, when for the first time I got this impression of like super strong player and not just controversial player, I got really impressed, and I read a lot. And there was a famous story from that book when Ratimir Holmov, he was Soviet Union champion. Yeah. At that time, you could travel to international tournaments only being a world champion, being maybe former world champion, winner of this Soviet champion, and maybe one person nominated by the authorities. And so this Kolmov became champion of Soviet Union, and he was actually at that time appointed to go to Havana chess tournament. It was Cold War at its peak, and Fischer was forbidden to play in Cuba because of relation US. And they found this way that he insisted to play, that he would play by telefax.
Yeah, from New York.
From New York
US,
club, from New York, from Marshall Chess Club. And Kolmov came to Cuba. Can you imagine a person, Soviet Union at that time was, I would say, not so like comparable to Havana with cocktails and some party life. So actually he got intoxicated. Tomorrow he won this game versus Bobby Fischer because Smyslov showed him some 94 concept. He won the game. Fischer congratulated him, and he said, "I was so like having a really tough night the night before. Then I was hangover, so I only wanted to go to bed. And then I'm going to Pardubice. Now we are in Prague. There was a famous tournament in Pardubice, and I see a person sitting somewhere in the corner at the lunch, and no one knows him. And I see a person who, for me, not that he played against Fischer, he won against Fischer, and he's sitting next to me. He was 70 years old, something like 74, and he was taking some soup, and I don't know how to explain. For me, that was huge, and then I think he passed away maybe in 2 years. But to see that person who played versus Bobby, and I was reading this, that was a huge thing for me.
Yeah. Okay. And so, what impressed you about Fischer as a player? I mean,
you know what was the case? So, for example, people who play some opening, Sicilian, Queen's Gambit accepted, and you have this in that kind of book, and that book and that kind of books. So, and suddenly people play this for 15 times. And with some evaluation that is slightly better for white. And then Bobby comes with the concept and completely changing the assessment. And you will see the players. So everyone was waiting, what will he do? To copy and to see, because he has his own ways, and he was always like playing the best stuff. So it was really huge, to follow the way, which openings he was implementing, which stuff. There was also famous footage of Ljubomir Ljubojevic. I think it was in Monaco. There was this Amber tournament, and he was showing how Bobby had his opinion about some symmetrical position. And he said, now white is on the move, but this is wrong for him because I can do the opposite. His contribution was strong. At that time, chess sort of got into not drawish tendency, but like Magnus made break a dogmas that in chess, if you don't have advantage, that you cannot fight for a win. This is what Bobby also did. At some point, he showed that it's possible to play for a win with the black pieces. which at 60s was not so common. Players would super solid, and then with white they were trying. But Bobby said that it's possible to play Benoni, King's Indian, Sicilian. It's possible to win with the black piece.
Yeah, he played aggressively with both colors. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So I think he did a great contribution for chess. And regarding controversial life, of course, I can only condemn this. But as a player, I would always love to point out this important part of his life.
Yeah, okay. And you mentioned the book Russians versus Fischer. Are there any other chess books? I mean, of course there are, but which would that be that impressed you, where you think, oh, this is great, and I would always like to go back to this book, and you have fond memories of this? And are there such books?
There are, of course, experts books for grandmasters, stuff where you could see some strong moves and so on. But there are also some light books. We were commentating 2 days ago or 3 days ago that book, that novel of Stefan Zweig,
Chess
Novella, which actually I was even invited to Croatian national TV, this cultural channel, where they were discussing his heritage, Zweig's heritage, yes, and also that book. And I was impressed what this book has provoked that, like, ordinary people who are not a chess player, for them, person playing blindfold chess, and then this whole story of how they were traveling, but big ferries and that time. So chess, and you also have this in the Queen's Gambit series, this Bohemian style, this style where chess was actually played in some nice spots, casinos, or maybe some theaters around the globe, was, I think, also something which actually it's a huge advantage of chess. It's a huge heritage, because chess was played in many locations where football can be only played at the stadium mostly, and some basketball match in a playing hall.
Yeah, but talking about the chess novella, didn't it ever bother you that the story is so unrealistic? That a guy who never played chess is, just by playing blindfold, I mean, in the prison cell, is becoming stronger than the world champion, and that his opponent, Centovic, is not able to play any blindfold game? I mean, when I read this novel, I thought, excuse me, sir, this is not how it works. Even I, as a relatively bad player, can play a blindfold game.
But in that novel, you could see what chess provokes. Chess provokes gathering of people, and people see some intrigue with this check. So who is stronger? Who will win? Suddenly people are gathering. It's a main thing on this ferry. So this chess match and suddenly it gathers. That was how it was in '72.
Yeah, and they want to punish the arrogant world champion,
exactly.
Centovic. Yeah.
And they're actually expecting, they're hoping that this will be punished. As I said, I have a feeling that chess has different faces. I'm the one who is, let's say, who is not only emphasizing competitive chess, which I think actually that chess is more important than that, because chess can be a fantastic tool. I even did some scientific article about chess as the name was chess as a important tool for successful people. The idea is that when I started to work in federation, and then I was meeting my colleagues. I was meeting.
You were working in the Croatian
as a
Chess
secretary
Federation.
general. As a secretary general, we have some problem. Let's say that something with organization, something with transport, with some events. You know how chess players work. Scenario analysis. What can we do? Candidate moves. Let's analyze. Let's see what we can get from all those.
Let's keep calm, and what's the problem?
Exactly, but we don't have too much time. We cannot do it for 2 days.
Yeah.
We need to decide. You are there to make a decision. If it won't work, what to do, then reassess the position. Let's try to find. And I was thinking that everyone is doing the same. But then I suddenly see that this person cannot make any decision. This person is trying to make decision without gathering all the information. This person was not considering possible options.
Yeah.
So chess helps a lot. Because we are trying to, for example, when you are in transport and you are picking up, either you will go with cab, will you take a tram, will you go by metro? So you every day you actually are choosing and picking up some possible scenarios.
Which line to play?
Yes, exactly.
Which line to take?
For us, it's normal. My wife, she has different qualities and capacity. But for example, making decision, it's an issue for her. But for chess player, okay, what to do? Let's make some decision.
But still, I find it striking that some chess players, on a theoretical level, they can do this very well. But if you watch them in practical life, they seem to be hopeless.
But the point is, that's what I'm saying. So, like chess as a tool, as a thing, you cannot. I would say the smallest possibility of monetization is in chess. So with those skills, if you are somewhere else, you can monetize and you can exploit it very well. While in chess world, there are a lot of competitors, and they are not so important. So if you finish a faculty like I did, this didn't help me a lot in my chess career. But it helps you to do something else, to have a broader vision and everything. But in chess, of course, probably you should be totally devoted. You should only think about chess to perform. I think Spassky said that you should put chess on first, second, and third place.
Yeah.
I was putting it on first place. Sometimes he was on second, but not on 3 spots for sure.
Yeah. But again, as you say, with monetization, I mean, and sometimes imagine you would be, if there would be a list of international lawyers and you would be on number 200, my lord, I think you would earn a lot of money. But number 200 in the chess world?
Exactly, but as I said, if you don't go too deep and you have a regular career, but you have this experience from chess, this knowledge from chess, I think that can be your advantage, a huge advantage. So chess as a tool, I think this is something which is way above just the play. I'm a big fan of chess tournaments. I'm a big fan of chess heritage. But I learned a little bit when I saw the life outside the chess world. I learned that there are a lot of possibilities which we don't see while being in chess world only.
Yeah, it's pretty secluded, isn't it?
Yeah.
The chess world, yeah. Well, we also talked about chess films. And again, your knowledge about chess films seems to be amazing. Do you have a favorite chess film?
Yeah, regarding series and films, of course, The Queen's Gambit goes very high because it was actually watchable with non-chess players. It was watchable. I watched it with my wife. It's very good for non-chess players, and the effect was super strong. I only actually have one point to clarify. So besides that, we can say that Chess Grandmaster did play in some interesting locations. Yeah. So I mentioned Cuba, Havana, and in that series was shown this Bohemian style. There is a true thing that players going to the tournaments, flying in a plane, always accompanied by some book. Even in Magnus' documentary about Magnus Carlsen, you can see that he's lying while his sisters are playing, that he's lying on a bed and reading some book, chess book, New in Chess or magazine, whatever. So that's true that chess players tend to read a lot because you're trying to get info about some position, and it drives your attention very quickly, very easily. Only part which was minorized
in Queen's Gambit.
In Queen's Gambit, it's how hard it is to become a world champion. Believe me, I was pushing hard. I came to, 150 in the world, and I was so far.
Yeah.
And while she's having some fun, and then let's fight for the title, and she becomes a world champion. So regarding that movie, but regarding Bobby, I was mentioning him. You have always, Pawn Sacrifice, which
the Tobey Maguire film.
Which focused on his controversial part a bit more than it's normal. You have also Bobby Fischer Goes to the World, some documentaries.
That's a documentary.
Yes.
I think Liz Garbus made it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But from my point of view, two documentaries. One I think it's HBO. It's Bobby Fischer Against the World, and you have a second one, Bobby Fischer Anything to Win. Those two are the one I'm always recommending to non-chess chess viewers. Now we have with Judit Polgar, which of course
Chess Queen.
Chess
Recently
Queen.
released on
Recently
Netflix.
released,
Yeah.
top 10 in many countries. In Croatia was top 3. Biggest number of likes, because now Netflix included that after the movie, after the series, you could press like on dislike or something, so everyone likes it. Only thing also, but this is my professional point, I regret that it was not shown enough how Judit was strong.
How strong she was.
So there was.
You think this was not shown in the film?
I had a feeling that was this focus on his matches, her matches versus Kasparov, which is fine. But believe me, she was super strong, and I recall some comments of Morozevich, who was number 2 at that time, mentioning that even for him, Judit was. But Morozevich was super original player and creative player. For him, Judit was aggressive player, so he was praying this in comment. When it comes,
Morozevich praised her.
Praised her totally. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and you had so many tournaments where I cannot say that people were scared from Judit, but it was really remarkable. Jeroen van den Berg for YKZ just did a masterclass workshop 2 days ago, and he was mentioning that Judit considers her result and YKZ second place as the biggest of career. I recall it was in St. Louis in Argentina, there was a World Championship unification match. Bessel Koch was around here also as a sponsor of many matches, so he knows this story, how this unification with the Professional Chess Association, which was formed by Kasparov and played the match versus Short in 1993, and you have video on this side. There was this unification championship in 2005 where Topalov won it, tournament of 8 players, and Judit scored plus. Behind her was Mickey Adams, super top player, Barev, Kasimdzhanov, so she was really, really strong. Here it was more about like proving that ladies and women players are capable of winning, but for me it was like nothing to prove. She was a member of elite and way above like many people.
Oh yeah, so she was more as a women chess player and not as a strong chess player.
Yeah, exactly. This is the thing. Also, there are some other movies. Of course, you can find also The Coldest Game on Netflix.
That's a spy thriller. I think it's a Polish film. Isn't it?
Polish film, and it's actually combines matches Karpov versus Korchnoi with parapsychology, then some others, quite easy to watch. But I don't know, like when I saw on YouTube also some footages, and for me sometimes just to see some material I don't need the movie. For example, there was some footage from Spassky's camp. Before the match versus Bobby in 72 match of the century. So they were preparing somewhere on a dacha, holiday house next to Moscow, and Botvinnik went to pay a visit.
This is
I saw some footage somewhere, but you know, these days the problem is that got deleted. It's not so easy to find something. And later he wrote that he saw tennis racket and bottle of whiskey, and for Botvinnik was enough. Iron, yeah. The patriarch who was just expecting that it will be like army regime, and it was far from that.
Yeah.
And you have also footage of Karpov playing tennis somewhere. Maybe you've seen it or not.
I've seen photographs, no footage.
There is footage even how he plays tennis.
And how does he play? Any good?
Could be better.
It could be better. Okay. So, coming away from favorite books and films and so on, do you have a favorite moment when you look back on your chess career? Something that stays in your mind when you think this was a highlight of my career?
So in 2017, so let's say that I was already with one foot out of my career. So 2017, we played European Team Championship in Chersonissos, Crete, Greece, and we were like seeded maybe 14th, And at that time, Russia was also part of the European Chess Union. The only European Chess Union, I think, is the sports association where they left. They went to Asia. So Russia was super strong. You had Armenia, as always, Azerbaijan, Germany, England, Spain, and Bulgaria with Topalov. It was usually strong. And I was playing for Croatian national team, and after 5 rounds, we were leading. There was a free day. And I recall that 5th round, we were playing versus Germany. Oh. I was usually playing board number 3 or board number 4. So, for example, we drew versus Armenia. I made the draw versus Sargsyan on board number 3, and some other results. And I recall that I was playing versus Svane. Rasmus Svane, Frederick was too young at that point. So Rasmus Svane, I was playing board number 4. And I was playing with the black pieces, and I pressed him a bit, and I think we won the match. I made the draw, but I recall after that match we played on the first board, first table as a match team. We played versus Hungary. Leko was playing first board. Judit was not playing, but Almashi was there and someone. And I'm sitting against the wall, and I see all the playing hall. And suddenly I take a look of second row, and I see Aronian, there I see Adams, then I see somewhere Grishchuk is there. It's that all the top players are sitting in the somewhere far away from this
behind you.
Yeah, and then I had this is something which will stay in my memory. There were also some cameras, there were also some journalists or something, and I'm sitting, and during the game, I said, what a cool feeling, because as I said, wherever I look, I see some legend, but far away from. In the end, we shared third place. Azerbaijan was first, second was Russia, and third was Ukraine. We were sharing with Ukraine, but unfortunately, we had the worst additional criteria. But I call this almost a medal because we shared third place.
Yeah. This is a nice memory.
Yes.
I wish I had such memory. Okay, but let's talk about your activities as a writer. You wrote 2 books,
So I wrote 2 books, 1 update. I was editor-in-chief for a long of Croatian magazine.
Sahovski
Glasnik. So it was one of the longest. Okay, usually, I'm careful when you say the longest, and then you will come up with something that in Germany is 200 years old, because you have this rich heritage. But okay, let's say the Croatian Chess Federation was formed in 1912, so it's one of the oldest. This magazine was part of Yugoslavian heritage. It was established in 26, if I'm not mistaken, or a little bit, 26 or 25. Gligoric was writing for this magazine, all those top Yugoslavian stars. Dražen Marovic, one of the first Croatian GMs, and I was writing some articles, some magazine, some like surveys and things from the tournaments, and then I became editor-in-chief. So that was like first thing which actually made me proud, because when you see the heritage, and then when you see that you are the one who is carrying that role. So I was always doing some articles. I was reading. I was a subscriber of New in Chess, and with my colleagues, sometimes people tend to see only your final result. Yeah. And when I was starting to write that, how come you can do it? It's so exhausting. I would never do it. Yeah. How people are sometimes acting, and then afterwards they are surprised why you are somewhere. So this is actually how I expressed myself. Then I also started to contribute a little bit with some articles and opening surveys for New in Chess Yearbook, which is more theoretical. Also, I was in Canada playing tournament in Montreal. Afterwards, I was asked to do some analysis of the game. So it became quite common for me. So writing a book came as a normal idea, because I was coached by Grandmaster Kozul. He was
Zdenko
Kozul, European champion in 2006. Very prominent figure. He was 2 times champion of Yugoslavia in late 80s. Then winner of many open tournaments around the world. He was playing also for Boston Chess Club. 4 times they were European champions, playing together with Kasparov. So Zdenko was at that time quite a prominent figure in chess world, and we started to work, and he learned me his Rauser Sicilian, although he was not the one who is saying that if you are a teacher, if you are a coach, that your students must play some opening.
He gave you a choice.
He gave me a choice, and I came, sound interesting, I would love to give it a try. And then he was the one who was improvising a lot, and I was the one who was very systematic. And then this combination was good, and then we wrote this book about this Rauser Sicilian.
What is it called? Richter Rauser Reborn?
Richter Rauser Reborn, because it was not so popular before him. He saw some article. There was Alexander Panchenko, Soviet grandmaster. I think he was a grandmaster, wrote some article, and then he saw it in a magazine, Russian magazine. He got inspired, and then he started to play this. And this was clearly his variation. By the way, 2 days ago we played paddle, Abdusatorov, Parham Aksudlo, Yufa, and me. And Parham asked me about Kozhul because he's a d4 player, but against Kozhul he likes to play e4 because he admires his Rauser knowledge and he wants to give it a try.
So he specifically plays e4 against
Kozhul because
just to provoke him, to challenge
get
him.
into this Rauser because he plays it with the black pieces as well. So he admires the way, and he said, and I got checkmated. He said at some rapid.
Really?
Yeah.
So he's, he uses the chance to play this against an expert.
Yes, and he actually wanted to show this respect of his contribution for that opening. So we wrote that book. But at that time, it was a problem. There was a grandmaster, very strong, renowned grandmaster, who was working in some director in that bookstore. And the problem is that Rauser, if you put it in examination by computers, by engines, it's always dubious. And so he was pushing us to come up with conclusions which are close to equalization, but this can't happen. So we were always trying to show it's a practical weapon. Against the engine we don't have chance. And then he was always pushing us, but this line should be fixed because here white is slightly better. Of course, if he knows 25 moves, he might be better. Yeah.
So it's a bit like the King's Indian.
Yes,
theoretically dubious, but
very practical.
Black has chances.
But we did, and I got the info from Ivan Sokolov, who is my friend. He was coaching one Indian grandmaster, and this Indian grandmaster came up after 2 weeks saying, I made the due diligence, I dig everything. There are 2 holes which were not clear that there are holes, but let's say that it stands his opinion. So I said, if a grandmaster after 2 weeks of heavy work found only 2 holes, then we are quite proud, because at the beginning they said target group is 2200, 2300 rated play. Also then we made an update. Mm-hmm. And since I'm the guy who likes to read a lot, likes to see many things, to memorize, I started to do some material collecting, screenshots of everything I see. Sometimes I will be even walking and see some amateurs playing. Oh, that's an interesting position. Let's get this position to my big database. And actually, I had some database with a lot of material, and I said, why not to give it a try? And I wrote this book, Grandmaster Mindset.
That's your second book.
Yeah, this is my second book. So the first one was the book with an update, and so 2 books, but let's call it 1 book. And this second one was more about examples, practical examples. And let's put this way, it was just after the COVID. I was a bit humble, not expecting that this will provoke some effects, but I'm getting this very positive feedback, because I was always trying to show that Magnus Carlsen has the same skills as I do in terms of getting information about the position, and then move is a final step, while people tend to immediately think that he finds the best moves or that you should immediately come in the move. But you are doing this with not all the information, so collect as much as possible to see what are the possible ways, what are the connections, what's the roles of the pieces, why this piece is here, good or bad, is there any X-ray, is there a possible motive which will, and when you get those information, now it's time to search for a move which actually fits fits into the system. What was the difference between me and Magnus? He's doing this 10 times faster, and he's more creative, so he can come with some unexpected solution. But I was trying to emphasize this, and actually people like to hear it. It's same like at the beginning of our story when I was telling about my colleagues, non-chess players. I was thinking that it's not something which I'm revealing as super new, but people like it. So
they were impressed.
Yes. Yeah. So skills, it's about skills.
But I was wondering, can you train this grandmaster mindset? Is there, a way an amateur or an average player or the so-called club player or even a FIDE master, international master can train the grandmaster mindset? So what do I have to do to...
Yeah, Johannes, what's the story? There are a lot of colleagues, grandmasters, they play chess better than me. But for some of them it would be very hard to, after the game, to show you the line of how this process of thinking, they cannot explain why they are doing something. For them it's so natural, it's a muscle memory that they cannot even explain it.
Yeah.
So I think there are some grandmasters who can maybe go to a lower level and then explain some processes.
Yeah.
Because I think they tend to forget that they have processes of thinking. It's not only about execution. So in that sense, it's possible just to clarify all the things. So for example, I'm teaching my students from time to time. As I said, I have a lot of faces, so I'm also doing some coaching a bit. Just it likes me, although I have one bad trait. I would say that I tend to connect a lot with my students, and if they lose, I'm sometimes even more worried.
You're very emotional.
Yes, yeah, and I would love to see them improve.
I know this is my son. I couldn't watch my son playing chess. I was so nervous.
You want him to perform well.
Yeah, and you see he makes a blunder, and you think, oh no.
Yeah. So from time to time, I teach my students. For example, when you win some material, now it's a different way of playing. Now you need to exchange pieces. You need to watch out for your king because your opponent will focus on your king. So now you're in a different mode. Now it's not time to go with the queen for some adventure. When the position is complicated, now I call this sport mode. Like in car, you can press sport mode, and now it's not about logics. Now even unexpected things should cross your mind because the position is different than a normal profile when you are only thinking about the regular moves. Now it's irregular. In regular, you need to open your mindset. You need to think about 64 squares. If there is a square controlled 3 times from your opponent, you still should think, is it possible to place the piece there? Because the position is irregular and it's possible that there will be some unexpected solution. And when you say this, chess is about what people also underestimate. We have this inner talk. So what is my opponent threatening? Where can I do? What is this piece doing? More you're asking yourself your question, because sometimes I say to student, okay, what's your opponent threat? And then he sees it and says, now this is the best move. I said, I didn't tell you the move. You did it yourself, but the question is important, and I cannot help you during the game. This is something you need to do it yourself, to ask yourself. More you ask yourself, more the solutions will come.
And this is a conscious process. You try to make your students think consciously.
Exactly.
Because I know if I play chess, it's like I look at the position and this looks like a good move. I play intuitively. And I repeat the good and the bad patterns I have, like calculating and so on and so on. But I find it very difficult to take a step back and to say, so what is the process to approach the position as a problem? And as you just described, and this is what you teach your students.
Yeah, also I'm teaching them that sometimes it's more about it's mathematical, that you need to cover all the possible possibilities, then by the process of elimination eliminate, and then you will find a solution. I have a student, he's a big fan of chess, but he's not chess player. he's over creative. And I said, there is a phase of the game which is more about clear structure to cover all the things. So, and he's lazy to do it, and he forces his creativity. So, as I said, you can improve a lot, and it's not only about the knowledge, it's about this process and the skills. And actually, this is what I was trying to explain in the book, and it seems that people like it.
So what do you think about these anecdotes about Capablanca, that he was looking at a position and, you know, all the grandmasters around him had no clue, but he said, well, this is the move, you know, one glance at the position. Is this legend, or do you believe in this, that there are some people who can actually, at a glance, see some spectacular or good moves that other grandmasters can not see?
There was a story and comment from Jonathan Rosson. He has, I think, PhD in psychology, grandmaster from Scotland.
Chess for Zebras and
Seven Deadly Chess Sins, those two chess books. And he was mentioning, I think, in one of those books that he played versus Mickey Adams, 6th in the world, top player, even now as a veteran, he's still super strong. And he was playing against him, and the game was complicated, but he was so devoted, he calculated also...
Rausen did.
Rausen, yes. He calculated so much stuff because he wanted later in the analysis to prove, to show to Mickey how far he can go, what he can see. And then the analysis happens after the game, and then he's showing this. And Mickey is watching. I didn't see nothing of that. And then Jonathan was shocked, and Mickey said, here I wanted to stop your counterplay with a5, here I knew that I need to exchange your knight, here I knew that I need to open my king, and he made like 5-6 comments of that, and Jonathan was shocked. So this is how Capablanca was working. Yeah. So this sense for danger plus a role of the pieces. For example, not many chess aficionados, they are not mentioning exchanges, because I'm saying you can outplay your opponent but deadly attack by, I don't know, squeezing position. But you can also outplay your opponent but by exchanging pieces at the right moment. So probably he sensed this danger, he sees the role of the pieces, and then, as I said, move comes as a conclusion. But while others are immediately trying to calculate, and only, as I said, doing this with maybe 20% of information. He would just stare, have a glance at the position, and he said, this knight is too strong, I need to exchange it, and then he sees the move and say, and then I stop the counterplay. So of course, sometimes he can be wrong. By the way, Bobby Fischer was asked a few times, what do you think, who is better, Alekhine or Capablanca? And then Bobby, later he got also devoted to some Capablanca's strategical parts, like in endgame, rook and a bishop tend to cooperate better than rook and a knight, and Bobby was using this a lot. And then he would say, how can you compare this attacking force, which is fine, to a beautiful symphony and harmony of José Raúl Capablanca?
That's what he said about Capablanca.
He was a big fan of José Raúl Capablanca. And then later you can see that Bobby did have some attacking and aggressive stuff, but he could also have this different phase, for example, winning versus Taimanov, that famous endgame bishop versus knight. So he knew, I think, a lot about Capablanca's style and Capablanca things.
And what about the role of intuition? I mean, I heard this theory that you have to study a lot, and then you have a pool of patterns, and these patterns help you to find the right move. You know, you see a certain pawn structure, or well, in this position which we have before us and which we can discuss later, you see certain motives. So I think every experienced chess player would look at this position and see immediately that the pawn f7, you know, there's a pin, and the pawn on e6 or the point e6 is vulnerable. And you do this because you have seen so many chess games, so many chess motives, and your intuition is shaped by this. How does this go along with the process you just described?
Yeah, it's not only about knowing things, it's also about playing experience, that you have faced many similar stuff and you have maybe good or bad experience, and then you know this is dangerous, because I played many blitz games. When this rook comes here, this X-ray is strong, better to avoid it. You know how I'm saying, the difference between Grandmaster and, let's say, beginner, is that beginner starts to change things when it's already over. Train has left the station, for example, stock market, suddenly, we need to sell stocks. No, it's already gone. Grandmaster tend to change things before it's not possible to repair things or to solve this. So you have this feeling, this X-ray is very unpleasant, so let's move away before. So here Black couldn't do it before, but we tend to feel this pressure over the pieces. It's of course known that as a Grandmaster you don't know the material on which you are playing. If you ask all the Grandmaster what were the material of the chess pieces, they were not sure. Is it plastic? Is it wooden? Do we have notation on the side? Yeah. No chance. Yeah. If you ask players now in this tournament,
are the pieces white or blue or pink
or do you have notation? I said, I don't know. Yeah. So, but they feel this. So when you're walking around and then you glance at the position, they immediately see networks and connection where the pieces are attacking something, and this is that pattern, and they can sense it's too late for one side, or it's still possible to solve that issue. So, as you mentioned, intuition is important, but also it's not about your own intuition. It's also about sharing knowledge. We are affected by a lot of infos from other players. So you have conversations, sometimes you are also discussing some position, and then you get affected also by your company, and this is also where you learned.
Exactly. If I analyze with good players, I play better. Not because they teach me something concrete, but because I somehow see how they think, how they work, and how they approach the game, and this, like a kind of osmosis, this goes to me. And
I learned a lot from Kožul in terms of competitive skills. He was very competitive, and he told me one thing: you should go to the board, sit, and be ready against weaker player, that after 100 moves and 5 hours of play, you will win in some pawn's endgame by some trick.
Okay.
So mentally, you should be ready that you will suffer for 5 hours. And I spoke with I have a lot of athletes, Croatian athletes as friend. I spoke with Ljubicic, he was world number 3 coach of Roger Federer. He said, the same goes for tennis. You come in Grand Slam, you come to the court expecting that you will play 5 sets. Usually you win in 3 sets easily. When is this mindset? But when you come with the mindset that you will win easily, usually you play 5 sets. So those things helps you, because chess is combination of knowledge, as you mentioned, intuition. Chess is combination of competitive skills. I was trying to, because I think if the player is determined and motivated, he can outperform maybe his opponent on the equal strength, sometimes even stronger. For example, I was doing some tricks to myself. Let's say that I'm playing Prague Festival and it's 5th round. Open
You're not
tournament.
a commentator, but you're playing.
Yeah, I'm playing. Maybe open tournament 5th round.
Yeah.
And it's a tense game. It's quite important, but it's still not end of the world. But if I win, I might end up on the first place after 5 rounds. Maybe I'm black. And, sometimes you tend to think also maybe a draw is good, or if I lose, it's not the end of the world. So you are not like fully devoted. So you know what would be my trick? My trick would be to say myself, because of various reasons, don't say that you are, I don't know, under some disease or whatever, that you are ill. But let's say that someone will tell you will never play a chess game afterwards. So this
would be the
last game. After that, because of various reasons, you will never experience this.
So finally it's over. Well, how do I care?
You know how well, or for example, football, you're with your friends, and of course you're lazy, but someone say because of some injury you will never play football with your friends anymore. But you will be there, you will be present, you will try to enjoy the moment, try to be focused, to do maximum. So those were the things how I was motivating myself.
So, but this is a bit like in life. I mean, I think everybody knows that someone, a friend of yours, an acquaintance dies suddenly, unexpectedly, and you think, oh my God, yesterday I just talked to him and I was careless. And then you think, oh my God, why was I so careless? These were the last moments I had with him or her, excuse me. And then you wish that you could turn the time back and
enjoy it, do maximum, be more motivated. Actually, I think that athletes and all players here, I sometimes tend to regret a bit that feeling. They're blessed because being an athlete, you experience something which not many ordinary people are experiencing. This feeling of uncertainty, this feeling of some competition, pressure, pure, because in chess, things are still, we have rules, no one can interfere your game, more you invest, you will probably get rewarded. I would say the chess is quite fair. Of course, invitation for tournaments is always tricky, but in that sense,
the game is fair.
Yeah, fair, and you can be blessed to do these things because as many of people, you know, like office job, 24/7, 8 to 4 every day, and then hoping for a weekend to play chess maybe. Yeah. And here you have it, you're traveling around, you're competing. I know it can affect your health. By the way, when I stopped playing, suddenly I was always sort of under some flu or a little bit ill or under this tension because you travel. It's not like a touristical. You need to come at one spot. You need to be there at that time because the round is starting. It's a bit stressful, but at the same time, as I said, you can be blessed. So from time to time, I check my games, my career. Now you reminded me of my game, and I would wish to go back to that time.
So let's go back to this game. I hope we can see this on the film. This is the position. Well, maybe you want to say something about it.
Yeah, so I played this Cappella Grande because, I don't know, 20 years ago, you didn't have so many open tournaments. These days you have Granke, I don't know, 3,000-4,000, right, people. You can even, you have this tournament where you can see top players and play yourself. At that time you had like 4 or 5, you had something in Spain.
This was 2011.
2011, Cappella Grande. This is a small village next to Dunkirk, which is on the coast, French coast towards UK, and they were giving conditions to different players around the world. So it was colorful with many countries. They would even give some conditions, free hotel for FIDE master, international masters, and I was a GM and I went there. It was one of the biggest tournaments with A, B, C groups. By the way, Pardubic's also here next to Prague was massive tournament. And I played 8 tournaments, maybe 500 players and almost 100 grandmasters. So
strong tournament.
I was 50th seed. You have Sasikiran here playing in the open section. At that time, he was almost 2,700 rated. So many grandmasters. And I won first 5 rounds. And then ChessBase made an article with photo. Croatian GM is leading in Cappella Grande.
Oh, we did that?
Yes. Oh. So thanks for that. I don't know who was the author, so I owe him a drink because
maybe
at that time, maybe you. I was impressed. I was happy. Yeah. And then I lost versus Leon Oyos in 6th round, who was at that time second of Vasily Ivanchuk. Mm-hmm. And famous stories about this, but let's leave those anecdotes. How Chucky would come with some novelties, and usually it would be somewhere where there is a tour around the pyramids in Mexico, and then he would say, "Yes, Bishop F4 in that position is the best." So I lost versus Leon Oyos. Unfortunately, I think he's not playing anymore so often. Then I won this game
against Krivoruchko.
Krivoruchko. At that time,
Ukrainian,
he was around 2,700 player, and he was a player who, you know, what was actually my achievement in career. I loved it, that role. So I was white, and I'm playing against a player who is higher rated than me, 27, and who never gets into bad position. Then you open the database and you see his game versus Aronian, not an easy draw, but a draw, without any problem. Then a game versus, I don't know, at that time, Topalov, draw. And then you see that 28 heavy guns cannot put the pressure on him.
Yeah.
But at that time I was working a lot and I was very sharp and I had my ideas. And then I managed to outplay him. in isolated pawn structure, because my coach Krunoslav Hulak and Ognjen Cvitar, former world junior champion, were always discussing this book from Alexander Baburin. I think he's originally Ukrainian who lived in the UK, Ireland, yes, and he wrote this book, Winning Chess Middle Games, where he was touching this isolated pawn structure with different opening outcomes, from English opening, from Queen's Gambit accepted, from Karo, and I learned a lot. And I was managed to exploit Topalov Kramnik toilet gate famous match in Moscow, but the position there was with the pawn on a6, and here it was with a7, and this is how this went unnoticed, because he didn't know about the position that this is also possible in the position without. It's not of importance, but he missed because this didn't touch his repertoire, because he don't have pawn. He doesn't have a pawn on a6. So this is how it went under the radar. So I managed to surprise him, and what I was very proud. So you have a guy who is never worse, and suddenly he's struggling against me. In my career, I had an issue then to find a new energy
to win the position.
To win, and sometimes I couldn't. I lost many games against good players because I couldn't. As I said, I managed to do something which is admirable. No one could, not no one, but 10 people stronger than me couldn't do it. But to find the energy is not so simple. I think Levon Aronian said that he's losing motivation when he's out is better and he already outplayed his opponent.
Yeah.
So I got into this position, and I have a feeling there is a killer blow, and I was checking, I have a feeling, and I think that I play something like bishop e6, d5, something like that, I think was the move. I think I took.
Yes, you took.
Yes, and then if he takes, the idea is d5.
Yeah, and I had a look at this position, and I thought,
this X-ray, this X-ray, 3 X-ray.
This is fantastic, and I had a look at this position, and I thought, I think in the game he took here, and I was
and then I play something like
like bishop g4 and then rook d1, and
he's losing.
But then I was wondering, I mean, what happens if he simply takes with the knight, you know? And then of course I thought, yeah, that's okay. I mean, looks like rook e6 doesn't seem to work, so you play d5, and for me that was it. And I thought, I mean, but what does white have, you know? And then I have to admit, I put on the engine, and black has no move.
Totally losing. And what's actually, if you take a look of chess from philosophical point of view, the tiny pawn has fantastic role in the end.
The isolated queen pawn. Finally,
yes.
The
and
killer punch.
You know what Aaron Nimzovich said, that this is what I'm using, because sometimes getting those quotes can help you to be aware of that. Aaron Nimzovich has said that isolated pawn is a dangerous criminal who needs to be locked and deprived of moving.
Yeah.
So, and then he showed some prison. I think even he was trying to explain the prison bars. The point is, when this pawn moves, it just explodes and opens some new energy. So that's why it's important to have a piece in front of.
So this was a fine game. So to conclude, we should not finish this interview without you mentioning your role as a commentator. And you were a TV presenter, you have a YouTube channel, and you regularly commentate.
This is my favorite role.
And people really like it. I've heard lots of people at the Prague Festival who say, oh, this is interesting. The live commentary is very, very good. And this is thanks to you.
Thanks for that. So I'm doing this for almost more than 10 years. And I was also commentating some events on Croatian TV. And I'm always trying to find a balance between praising players since after engines has come into the play. It's not easy to show to the people how hard it is to play, because engine is 3,700, while here players are 2,700. And sometimes by checking engine, we expect the players to play on that level, and this is impossible. So NG bar of equal position sometimes tends to hide a lot of drama, a lot of possibilities. So I'm always trying to combine praising the players, giving some additional info besides the games, so that I know some players like to do some sports, whom I met at the breakfast, what did he say, and so on. Plus anecdotes, and also through this Grandmaster Mindset book stuff, I'm also trying to give some skills, some tips for beginners. It's not so simple, it's not so easy. Also, I always having nice co-commentators. Here I'm doing this with Keti. But once again, I have colleagues who play better chess than me. This is not even a question. But you need to have this experience to know how to speak, what dynamics to do, on when is the moment to speak more, when is the moment to focus on something. So I would say that with this experience on TV, 10 years on Croatian national TV, I managed to develop those skills. So I'm happy. This is something what I like to do, and hopefully I will keep up with that in future.
Okay, let's hope that you do. But to conclude, final question. The tournament is, I think, today the 7th round will be played. And what game of the tournament impressed you the most so far? If there's any favorite you have.
Yeah. There were several games. For example, in the Challenger section, there was a crazy game which went under the radar because of the main group. This is second round, if I'm not mistaken, Judit versus local player Nemec. That was a crazy game, being a rook down, but he has domination. One of the best games, the most complicated games I've seen for a while. So check that game. As I said, it went under the radar. It was fabulous, fabulous game in the Masters section. For sure, game of the year, and I will show it on Croatian national TV. I already made a remark, is Navara versus Jakubojev. This is one of the best combinations in terms of a long line, which was not forced, which David executed a really memorable game. I saw a tweet from Garry Kasparov that he even mentioned that this game is only, this kind of tactics is only possible from Catalan. But as I'm saying always in commentary, you need two for tango. So I always praise opponents, because Nodirbek Jakubojev is one of the players who is actually the one maybe a little bit underestimated at the moment. Prior to the event, I said for sure he will be in the middle of the table, maybe even in the upper part. So keep an eye on that player. And just want to add one final thing. Chess is quite interesting, because these days you have many players who can perform well. Prior to the World Cup in Goa, I was asked who will win the event.
Yes.
And regarding the profile of the players, so I would say that I got used to them, and I can maybe see something which people cannot see. I said, you know who will win the event? Sindarov. And you know who won it?
That.
He was 16th seed before and it was actually filmed. I have a proof that I sent.
Okay. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you dare a prediction for the Masters in Prague?
Yeah,
or is this asking too?
I think that this is Jordan van Foreest part of the year, and Jordan van Foreest tournament, so I will stick with him here.
Okay, thank you very much. This was very interesting. Thanks for your insights. It was a pleasure, and I learned a lot.
Yeah, thanks for you too, for whole your group, and I'm looking forward to discussion, because I have a feeling that you also know a lot about the chess history and heritage.